So Mike, let's get into the week's news. I want to start with Meta, who launched Muse Spark. Monetization remains unproven. Meta plans to pour between $115 billion and $135 billion this year into capital expenditures, and about 97% of its annual revenue comes from advertisements. If Muse Spark doesn't measurably improve ad targeting or unlock new revenue streams of some kind, this becomes the most expensive feature upgrade in history. What do you think about Meta and their new pay-for model?
I think it's interesting because in one of the previous episodes, we talked about Google doing the opposite, going from a proprietary model, but then opening up Gemma, making it open source. Meta's doing the opposite. Meta's typically been open source in the past with Llama, and the moment they felt the pressure of the other foundation models, probably Anthropic, OpenAI, you can go on and on, Gemini, they hire somebody, I think his name's Andrew Wong, and then they go proprietary as soon as they got it competitive. And I guess the question would be, what will they do with the Llama then? Will they keep the open source? And I know they hedged a little bit. They said, well, it's not clear that it'll be proprietary forever. But the interesting things is they already started to target a little bit. So where will they point this thing that they're developing? It's going to be multimodal. For those of you who are unaware what that means, it's going to be video, audio, etc. And that matches sort of the resources they've already got, right? You got WhatsApp, you got Facebook, you got Insta, right? They're focusing on the things that I think would accentuate the user experience in those apps. So will they generate revenue from it alone? I don't know, but oftentimes you may spend money doing this as a business just to accentuate the existing services that you're offering to your users to keep them locked in. I don't know if Facebook's shedding users. I haven't used it in forever, but that was just one of the things that came to my mind when I read the headline here. What are they doing with it strategically? And is this going to be a huge capital dump where it's just unclear where it goes? I think the difference between Meta, and I would put Google in the same box, and Anthropic and OpenAI in another box, is Meta and Google already have channels.
Yeah.
They already have distribution. So they have a huge advantage over Anthropic and OpenAI. You wonder what's going to happen in the long run. How will OpenAI and Anthropic build those channels? I know Anthropic's going deep into enterprise. Meta's probably not going to go there. Google's in enterprise, but it's more of a multimodal stack too, because they have different products under that. And OpenAI, well, they're sort of swirling in all directions right now.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they do make an enterprise play of some sort, just because that seems to be where the money is going to be coming from at first anyway. At least we're seeing that a lot with Anthropic, who we'll talk about in just a second. So I don't know. Maybe they will make an enterprise play, but there's one of two things happening here for me, and that is Meta is making a play to shareholders who want to see some sort of paid model because all the other companies are doing it. Where's ours? Or two,
that's right.
There are some numbers that they're finding that, some steps down the road that I don't know yet what they are, because these are smart people that know what they're doing, and there has to be some sort of money reason behind it. I just don't know what it is yet, but there might be.
You make a really good point. I think people underestimate how much shareholder and board pressure can force executives into spending capital on something they may never succeed with, but they don't have a choice because there's so much pressure on them to at least send a message to the market that they're also in AI, even if strategically it makes no sense. I think you could make a pretty good argument that Meta strategically, this could make sense to enhance the user experience of their current users. And the other thing I thought was really interesting about this one is it's more efficient, apparently. This is some little blurbs that I saw, is like it uses less tokens than the other models. They use something called thought compression to do that. So they're already looking at the bottom line before they even scale this thing. And it's not clear that the other foundation models are doing that yet. They're just all horsepower to the model. So that's interesting. They're taking that efficiency into account already.
Well, I did read something about, I don't know if it was hypertoken. It was something that made AI need 1/6 fewer tokens. I'll need to look into that. Maybe we can talk about that next week a little bit. But I kind of want to move to Google now, who on the opposite end of that, as we just mentioned, they launched Gemma last last week. And now they're doing what I view as a demo product for Gemma. They've released on the iOS, they've released a free offline AI dictation app for iOS powered by Google's on-device Gemma models. It's not a transcription tool, but an editing layer that rewrites your speech into polished prose. So, right now it's on the iPhone, but imagine I could deploy this in a keyboard, for instance. I could hit a button on my keyboard and it begins dictating what I'm writing, but then it also takes out all the ums and rearranges it to make it more polished on the fly. Now, I don't think this will ever be in a doctor's office for this purpose. They need very specific dictation when you're giving medical notes. However, for me as a salesperson writing 100 emails a day, this is super valuable. I'm very excited to see this.
Yeah, one thing I found interesting, it looks like they launched it on Apple iOS first.
Yeah.
That's an interesting strategic move, why they would do that. But it turns out I think some of the famous dictation apps are located there. I think I'm just looking through them right now. Whisper Flow, Super Whisper, Willow. Mm-hmm. Those are SaaS models that do one thing and do it really well. Key point here, Google released it. It's free. I think it's called Eloquent, right? Which makes sense.
Yeah, you're
speak eloquently, right? So it helps you as a user speak more eloquently. So that's interesting. Why would they be doing that strategically? It may be what you said, to demo, to test, but it does call into question those types of models that do those one things really well. If Google can do that for free and destroy those other businesses, that's worth the demo maybe, right? They're just testing, can they actually do that? Huge brand name. An equivalent thing that came up recently, I don't know if you knew this. Do you know in Google in Gmail, you can set up your calendar and send a link out to people to schedule meetings?
Yeah.
So why on earth would you ever pay for Calendly or other applications like that anymore? And so Google's kind of it's not that they're announcing this to people, they're just kind of doing it under the radar.
Yeah.
Because they already own you as a user. You get locked into their search, into Gmail, and so forth, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's a very interesting thing. And then I wonder, because I'm a language nerd. Could this native capability that they're releasing be used to create better language apps because it's already probably has 100 and whatever languages supported in it already?
Yeah, that's exactly where my mind went to, is a live translation device where you can be anywhere in the world because it doesn't need to be online.
And Translate's already great, right? Another Google tool where I think most people are locked into Translate.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. All right, let's move on to Anthropic here. So Anthropic's annualized revenue surpassed OpenAI, at least with numbers that came out today. Anthropic said that they have a $30 billion run rate as of today. And last month, OpenAI said they have a $25 billion run rate. So Anthropic is now outpacing OpenAI. It suggests enterprise first may be structurally superior to consumer first, where inference costs make free users a liability. Anthropic now projects positive cash flow by 2028. OpenAI not cash flow positive until 2030 based on current projections.
No, I think you'd have to break that down, but it's a hell of an accomplishment to get to where they are right now. You want to break down where that cash is coming from. I think you hinted it's coming from enterprise. And I think a lot of people see enterprise as higher quality revenue because free users or just subscription-based users that you can turn off from month to month, they're going to churn. They just do, especially with so much competition coming out. We just talked about Meta releasing another one, right? And then you have the open source models. Why would enterprise be superior? On the one hand, it's very hard to penetrate enterprise. The lead times can be 6 to 12 months, right? Just to get a corporate service level agreement, get through all the layers of bureaucracy you got to get through to get there. But that ends up being a strength if you get through it. It becomes part of your defense. It's a barrier to entry for anyone else who wants to come in. If you figured out how to sell into corporate, and then you're typically going to get multi-year contracts, 1 to 3 years. Anthropic may get even longer. Now, if I were a corporate, I wouldn't do that right now because there's so much variability in the market around where these models are heading, and there's new capabilities every day from each different model. I don't know if I would lock myself in that long. I think you're right. You want to see if that revenue is really getting locked in for the long term, so you're getting this annual recurring revenue, which everybody wants to get. But I do also wonder about the cost, because I just saw a couple articles this week talking about the capital cost for both of those, OpenAI and Anthropic. They're going to be posting like minus 85 billion loss. I think it's OpenAI. So that revenue is costing you a ton of capital.
That's their training cost and also then inference costs. So the actual back and forth as users are talking to it, right? So that calculates both of those things, right?
Yeah, and the expansion, right? You're always trying to expand the model as far as possible, train on more and more data, and it just consumes more and more capital. And you wonder how sustainable that is.
Yeah.
I wonder even if Anthropic, I think they have a 350 billion valuation. The IPO projection for OpenAI was closer to 852, closer to a trillion. How will you ever generate enough cash to justify those valuations when Meta announces theirs, Google's getting better, the open source models are getting better? I could be wrong, but I think the mental math that people are doing behind this is that they assume that AI is a winner take all market.
Yeah.
I don't think it is. I think it's obvious already. This is not winner take all. Is the pie just going to be so huge that they all produce enough cash for those valuations? I don't know. It reminds me of EV, electric vehicles. I once saw some stats. If you took all the investment in electric vehicles and the planned capacity and the predicted capacity, it went way past the car park, is what they call it, how many cars there are actually out there by far. What you know from that is that all of this investment, some of them are going to lose. There's just not enough cars to sell. But I don't know if that analogy holds for AI, because AI, maybe there's not a limited capacity out there. Maybe it's just expands forever. But I think that's a warning sign you want to look at when you have so much investment going into the same market, right? I know they're segmenting. Gemini is going in one direction, Anthropic another, OpenAI another, Meta in another. But you just wonder, is there really enough slack out there in the market?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll dig into that a lot more, I believe, in coming episodes. Real quick, I just wanted to mention that Intel joined Musk on his Terafab project. The move positions Intel at the center of Musk's latest attempt to redesign silicon fabrication technology. Terafab is envisioned as an end-to-end chip facility that combines design, testing, and packaging in one location, something Musk said doesn't exist anywhere in the world. A really quick take on this for me is TSMC, Taiwan, semiconductor manufacturing is been doing this for decades, generations, and their ability to they can put 30% more semiconductors in the same area as Intel can. And they also have a much lower failure rate, which means that they get a lot more serviceable chips that aren't waste at the end of a production run than Intel does. So Intel is going to have they're going to have an uphill battle, one, but two, it is something that we need to diversify out of Taiwan completely next to China, because that is very, very dangerous, having all of our valuable semiconductors produced there. Anyways, my quick take. How about you?
Yeah, I think the quick take is, if you've talked about the data centers in space and then XAI and Tesla and all the chips that you need just for Elon's companies, that's not even including everybody else's companies. I think I saw one estimation that you're going to need 5 trillion worth of development of chips.
Yeah.
And the budget for this is, what was it? 25 billion?
Yep.
Right. So is this just marketing, or are they going to really have the capital to actually produce the chips that you're going to need for all this?
Yeah.
Or are they going to have to dual source, triple source? And what that means is, can you really depend on the Taiwanese? Intel, maybe you're going to need a lot of hands on deck if you're ever going to reach that number of chips. So as you mentioned, Elon's really good at marketing, and you just wonder, what is the actual business model behind this? I don't know. But I think directionally he's correct that if you want to succeed at this, you do need to get your sourcing out of only Taiwan, have a more diverse supply base, and you're going to need a lot more than we currently have, even if this one succeeds.
Yeah. Well,
which it's not guaranteed. I don't even know if we have the engineers for this.
Speaking of grifters, Sam Altman has recently become the subject of intense public scrutiny following a sweeping investigative piece in the New Yorker that raises serious questions about his honesty and leadership, which arrived at the same moment as a Pentagon deal controversy, an Elon Musk lawsuit heading to trial, and a literal Molotov cocktail thrown at his home. I'll let you take the point on this one.
I think this one is a Molotov cocktail, right? So
yeah.
It's just swirling with speculation about what's really going on. And to be fair, Ronan Farrow, right? He's writing for the New Yorker. He's going to find dirt, right? You're not going to get published if you don't find dirt. But some of the dirt, it does hint at some of the things Elon has been hinting at. One board member supposedly said Sam Altman is unconstrained by the truth. Now, I make the joke, well, that sounds like just a typical corporate CEO. When were they not constrained by the truth? Maybe he's already ready for the IPO, right? The other was famous investor said that he's a straight up liar. Engineers are saying he doesn't even understand the technology. Again, ready for CEO. You don't even need to understand the technology. You don't need that. You just
need
need
to be able to navigate social media. You're good.
Exactly. Vision and presence and be a tall person, right? And then you can be CEO.
I don't know about the tall person either. I was looking at some pictures. Anyways.
No, yeah, well, that's what they say, right? That CEOs should be tall.
Metaphorically tall. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, his ego's tall, apparently, right? So
yeah.
So there seems to be this onslaught of negative information, and Elon's been at it for a while. Anybody who's on X, you get his notifications. He's after Altman, and he's trying to get OpenAI to be pulled back into a non-private company, right? He wants it to be a non-profit company again, and for him not to be the CEO anymore. And that's just legit. So I don't know what's going on in the background there. You mentioned the Molotov cocktail, and then he went on a PR tour saying these types of stories, this type of negative publicity, of course, puts me in danger. So who knows what's going on? It sounds like corporate, just typical corporate, if you ask me.
Are you saying we've got a Juicy Smollier? Whoa. Is that what his name was?
Well, it's certainly juicy. Yeah.
Let's see. Anyways. Okay. Well, yeah, I agree. I've been looking at a lot of his spending habits lately. He's got a nice collection of Koenigsegg's lately. If you look into his real estate deals in his San Francisco house and buying 3 properties around it for multi-millions of dollars.
Buying podcasts that he
buying
likes.
$100 million podcasts for...
Yeah.
He's acting out, in my opinion. just from my, I'm way back here. I don't have that kind of money, and maybe it's just very small percentages to him. So maybe I'm completely off here. But
what was the old phrase? Get in where you fit in.
Something like that. Yeah. I like to think if I had that much money, I'd be smarter with it. Hey, you've just watched a clip from Show Your Priors podcast. We hope you liked it. Check out our main channel for full episodes. We're also anywhere podcasts are found. Give us a like, subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything, but helps us out a ton. We'll see you back next week.